What's up guys, it's back to being deck profile season and I'm really excited because I can finally get out a ton of new deck profiles. If you guys remember back in BFA, I didn't really like any of the rulers, so I didn't want to go out of my way to try to think of like these kind of not so good decks that people might go out of their way to make, and then it wouldn't be as successful against everything that was kind of really popular back then. But this format I feel really confident, and I've been thinking of just all these different lists for all these different rulers, and zero was of course also like totally excuse me if my throat like dies anywhere in between. I'm sick yet again. You might have heard in the box profile, I mean the box opening, but it's gotten kind of worse, so I might be kind of getting a little like what is it, like hazy sounding, but I'll be back to normal soon. So so far I've thought of a zero list and a feasting list that I feel really comfortable with. Feastings will most likely be coming out either Thursday or Friday. I'm really trying to get these lists out soon to you guys so you guys can kind of have something to mess around with, because there isn't a lot of lists out there right now. But yeah, so zero is going to be first, of course, because zero is possibly the most popular ruler out of the set, and including the 5 starter decks as well. But I'm going to be doing the starter deck rulers soon too. I know a lot of people might be getting into the game, and so they might want somewhere to go to add cards to their deck, but I'm going to try to get them out as soon as I can. So I really do apologize for the wait. I just want to make sure they work and they're successful, instead of just kind of throwing something together and maybe not having it work as well. But I played this at the last tournament for the Sunday at CoreTCG, and I went undefeated with it until top 4, where I lost to someone that I beat in Swiss. So typically it was a good matchup. It's just it was kind of hard to play against, and it was like a Machina deck, so eventually at one point I just got kind of rushed down and I couldn't stop it, but we weren't siding or anything, so I felt as if I had a side, I feel really comfortable. So the deck definitely works really well. And so starting with just zero as the ruler, we see her little owl here. It's the coolest thing ever. Her judgment cost is 2. She has energize. For anyone that still doesn't know what energize is, it just means if you're the player going second and you have energize, you're allowed to float 1 mana of that will during either player's turn at any point, just once per game. So if I go second and my opponent attacks first turn and I have no stones, I can energize and use like zero's magic. If I go second and I'm on turn 2 and I have 2 stones, I can float light and play a 3 cost if I want. It just gives you an extra mana once per game. And then her first activate effect is target Resonator gains +1/+1 until the end of turn. This is actually really good because if you play against someone that has like the same deck as you, or like let's say the same Resonators or whatnot, your Resonators are always winning. It's what made Reflect so good in the past with his +2/+2. And then her second effect is to pay 1 black, so of course there's going to be black-white. And its target J Resonator loses flying, first strike, swiftness, precision, and imperishable until the end of turn. This is perfect for stopping anything like Viper Rush, so you can still block with your little cards. It's really good for getting the new vampire guys imperishable off, so you can Black Moonbeam. It just kind of gives you a lot of options. So I've been really fond of the second effect. I don't focus on it too much, but the way I made the deck is its mana curve is just really good. Actually, I was surprised when I first made the list and I was testing it out. I didn't think it was going to work so well, but it's actually been giving me like a lot of good results. So for the stones, I have the 4 Heaven's Rift. This is light black. If you have an alternative art version, you can still only run 4. I've actually been asked that question a couple times now, so I just want to make sure people know that. You can only have 4 copies of any card with the same name in your deck, so the new stones you see in the new set are just alternative art. It's still just 3. I mean, you can still only have 4, so 4 of those. I have 3 Black Silence. This is for black-green. And then I have 3 Gusting Skies, which is light green. So for anyone that doesn't know, in my videos I've explained before that if you ever want to use a card that has 2 of 1 color cost, so like 2 light and 1 colorless, or 2 light, anything that just has 2 of 1 color, I personally feel really comfortable only doing that if I have at least 7 of that color in my mana pool. So I have 4 black whites and 3 Gusting Skies, so that's 7 light. I have 7 black because there's 3 black silence and once again 4 of the black white, and then I have 6 green. So the deck is 7 black, 7 light, 6 green. So that's a really good ratio if you want to kind of splash in some colors. You never really want to go like 4 black white, 4 let's say white green, and then you're trying to use really heavy black cards or really heavy white cards, because well, I mean, the white cards would be okay because it's white green and white black, but you wouldn't want to use like a lot of green with only 4 green. So I like going 4-3-3 or like 3-3-4, just depending on that's the same ratio, but like depending on the stone. So always try to aim to have at least like 7, and then 6 of your off color should be really good, but typically always 7 of the main ones. You never want to get less than that. And then for the resonators, I'm running 4 of the Glorius, the Silver Knight, I believe it is. This card is really good, and it's the main reason why I wanted to build the deck this way. So the entire deck is supposedly like, I try to aim to make it like a quick cast deck, so everything just works on your opponent's turn and your mana is always open. So this card says when it enters the field, you can destroy a target J/Resonator that has dealt damage this turn, which is absolutely incredible because it works on J-Rulers too. And so your opponent can just go like swing with their J-Ruler, you take the damage, they end their turn, you summon this during their end phase and just kill their J-Ruler, which is crazy. Or they can go like, let's say, attack with a big monster, you take the hit, then they attack with a little monster, you can quick cast this, destroy the first target, and then block the second target. So you 2-for-1 them, and then he can attack next turn because it avoids having summoning sickness because you played it on their turn. And then the actual red effect, where it says this card gains 200 in first strike, you're actually able to use that too, which I'll go into later, but because there's no redstones, but I'll explain. The next card is 3 Tama, the Familiar of Holy Wind. This card's just a little draw engine, and I also wanted something to set off my underground draggers. I am using a little bit of a stealth engine in this deck, so having something like this that just draws you a card and can poke for little damage while still being able to just block something to set off underground dragger is really good. It just adds a little bit of like consistency to the deck too, because you don't want to have like no draw power at all, and this was like a good 3 of. I didn't want to play 4 of it because it seemed a little too much with only 6 green, but 3 has been working really good. And then for Melfee, this card is absolutely insane. It's literally like the main reason, this and Wind Secluded was the reason I wanted to play green in this deck, but this card just enables so much. The fact that it produces any color is crazy because, once again, you get to keep your mana open, so you can either set up stealth monsters, your quick casting Melfees, your quick casting Glorius. The protection effect doesn't go off too much in this deck, but it does if you use like certain stealth cards, because then you've played more cards that turn. And you can protect like a damage from a creature, so that's not why I use this card. It's mostly for the mana production. But what you can do is like on turn 2, if you leave 2 open and you pass, and your opponent, like let's say, plays a card or attacks or whatever, and you either want to take it or drop Melfee and block, whatever the situation demands, when you drop Melfee on turn 2, on your next turn when you tap for a stone, you have 4 that either lets you have 2 open for like a counter and setting a standby, or you can set 2 standbys, or you can play just any combination. Like the deck has a lot of 2-drop stuff, so it's really nice to be able to do that all on turn 3, and it kind of sets you up really well. You can even like drop a Glorious next turn for 3 and still have 1 light through Melfee to play the Zero's Magic Light. It just adds up the numbers really nicely. And then not to mention, a lot of the times when I drop Melfee, on my next turn when I draw, I can tap her to pay black or white to use one of Zero's activates effects. So you can even like pump Melfee up by 1/1 if you want, or another familiar you have, you can make it 3/3 for example, so you can swing that turn for 300, you can blank one of their cards. It just enables a lot of plays, and I'm really fond of Melfee. I think she's insane. And then for Executioner, like I said, I want to be able to play only during my opponent's turn, and so I played a lot of stealth because stealth is really good at doing that. You kind of set up early, and then after that point, your opponent just can't do anything. I can't explain how many times I played against one of my really cool friends that was playing Machina, but he was playing this version where he was like dropping Gwybers and Ice Dragons and all these huge like Maribel to 5-drop and everything that was big, and every single time, I don't know how, but I had an answer. It was like he would swing with the dragon, I could like blank the flying and block with the familiar, and then he would attack with like a Clockwork Soldier, and I would go like summon Underground Dragger and then kill the Gwyver, block the other card, or drop Glorious and do the same thing. It was just so good, and the stealth engine really helps that too. Not to mention, what a really weird thing I've noticed is with Energize, if I'm playing against another deck that also has Energize, so any of the new rulers, I almost really like going second with this deck, because there's been so many times where I just go tap for a stone, it's black-white, I energize and set Executioner, and then on their next turn when they do their like turn 2 setup play, I just kill it, and it's so good. Like I never feel behind with this deck. And then for Riza, same thing. Riza is the best stealth engine card just because she sets anything from your deck. You can set an Executioner, you can set Melder. It comes with the cost of 1,000 life, so it is kind of a bummer that you have to do that, because sometimes there was one time where I had 600 life and I had a Riza and it would have literally won me the game, but I couldn't use it because I didn't have the life to pay, so that's kind of a bummer. But it doesn't happen too much. It was against that same Machina matchup, so it's kind of like, you know, if I had sided, I would have felt fine with it, so I'm not too worried about it. But you still want to run 4 because you want to see it as early as you can. And then just for any of the new players that don't understand how any of these stealth cards work, so to play a stealth card, you have to set it in your chance standby zone for 2. No matter what the cost is in the top left, you always pay 2 to set any card in your chance standby zone. And then when you meet the trigger requirement, you can summon it. So Riza's, for example, is you have to have 4 magic stones, and one of them must be darkness. That's not hard, of course, because 7 of our stones are darkness. And then when she comes into play, she sets any card from your deck. So what's really good about this is, once again, the whole deck is quick cast and like 2-for-1s. So what you want to do is, like, let's say if you've met the requirement for Riza and your opponent attacks with a small monster, you can summon Riza, set, like, let's say Executioner if you're going to summon it that turn, or Melder if you're going to use Melder. You can summon her on the attack, block the attack, and then if they attack with a bigger monster, you can flip in the Melder and kill the bigger monster too. So you always want to be really responsive with this deck. You don't want to give your opponent the opportunity to play. You just literally sit there and counter everything they do with either the cards in your hand, the cards in your chance standby, the cards in like any removal you might have, so it works really well. And then the 4 Melder, same thing like I explained, this card is mainly used with Riza. If you have less than 2,000 life, you can flip him in, and then he does -4/-4 for every stealth you control. So with Riza, it's at least -8/-8, which kills most cards. And then if, let's say, they do have something as big as like a Gwyver, it'll still add up, because if you have like an Executioner or an Underground Dragger, that's -12/-12. So I've never had a problem with Melder like killing enough. You can even like swing with the monster, and when they block, you can flip in Melder and kill the blocker so your attack goes through. It just enables so many plays, and he's huge. Like having a 10/10 and an 8/8 that early during your opponent's turn to kill their stuff and then swing for free on your next turn is just really powerful. And then the 3 Underground Draggers, this card's one of the stealth monsters that isn't seeing a lot of play, but it's by far one of my favorite ones. Just being able to 2-for-1 with this card, it's like the Dark Glorius. This is like what Glorius is pretty much, but from your hand. So it's really nice to be able to like block with the Tama cat and then flip this in, or with the Melfee, even if you don't mind losing it, depending on what they're attacking with. What's really cool too is, with Underground Dragger, back in like when I used to play like Stealth Kaguya, one of the issues is because it was kind of like a very high, heavy Gwyver meta, people used to be able to just swing over my monsters, and I couldn't meet the requirement of getting a monster to be destroyed and them have dealt damage to flip this in. But with Zero, you can blank their flying and block with the ground monster and then flip in the Underground Dragger. So it even like, she even weirdly works perfectly with that aspect. It's just like the deck has so much synergy without it even supposed to being that way, that I'm really happy that all of this kind of added up. It's just been really like a really cool build, and I really hope you guys enjoy it. Moving on to the spells, there's 4 Zero's Magic. This card is just really insane. For whatever reason, I didn't see this card at all during the whole tournament, and I still did really well. I literally only saw it during my game 1, where I drew like 3 of them, and I like only used 1 because the rest of my cards were doing all the work anyway. But this card is insane. Like, any light deck should play 4 of this card, even if it's not 0. It doesn't matter if it only costs 1 with 0. It's pretty much stoning to death, which is something that was played so heavily in dark, but for light. Like, for 2 to be able to remove any monster, especially when they're like, I attack and they block with something like a Rook Egg or a small Assistant Mariabella or anything that like hits the grave and you just remove it, it feels so good, and it lets you push for so much damage too. And then the 4 Scorns, I was actually going to take this out, but I realized how important it is. Being able to hit your opponents like Captain Hooks, anything that they're kind of setting up for. A lot of this format's going to be like those really big monsters that people can either ramp to or cheat into play, and I like being able to hit those important cards out of their hand. It does feel kind of like not so strong against something like Machina, or I'm assuming it's not going to be so good against Charlotte because she could just like draw all these cards back, but I guess still hitting the problem cards makes it really worthwhile, so I kind of want to keep it. The only card I've taken out so far is Safeguard, which I didn't like, but I'll just side Addition Hate. And then 4 Seals. Normally I don't like playing this if I don't have full green, but seeing as how I had so much mana open all the time because I was only playing during my opponent's turn, made this card really good. There was times when my opponent would just try to do something crazy and I would just go counter. And it just felt so good because nobody sees it coming. They don't think you're going to play this in a deck that is so mid-rangey, I guess, because it's kind of like a, I don't know how to really explain it. Like it's kind of like my old 6-stage deck, and I think that's why I liked it so much. For anyone that's seen that, like it was the first like quick cast deck that I had ever made, and it was about, you know, playing during your opponent's turn, and it just felt really cool. So I like having the counters, and they were never dead either. Like with Melfee especially, I always had the right mana card for it. The one win Secluded Refuge. This is to protect myself from either Glorius or Black Moonbeam. You really want to be able to protect 0, because once you deactivate her, your opponent just can't really do that much. And you don't want them to bait you into doing something that they can destroy her with. So having one of this is fine. I always had it when I wanted it. And when Scorn, it was also like, I would Scorn my opponent, take an important card out of their hand, deactivate knowing they don't have Black Moonbeam, and at that point, if I don't have the win Secluded Refuge and I'm setting up a win, and they drop their like 1 Black Moonbeam from game, I'm cool with losing my 0 to that play because there's nothing you could really do. It's worth risking it in that situation because you're not going to wait for your win Secluded Refuge, whereas if they draw their Black Moonbeam, they draw it, so it's totally fine. Like, if you're setting up the win, even if you lose 0, you do fine, so it doesn't really matter. And then I also made my 1 Black Moonbeam. This is important because you don't want to be rushed down by J-Rulers. I feel like a lot of the new J-Rulers, like Yogg especially, are really low cost, and I'm really scared I'm going to play against some guy who just like randomly happened to make this deck with like 4 Levitins, 4 of like every Regalia, and just like deactivate swing. I feel like that's still really real, and like Valentina's kind of scary still. So I was like, I wanted to have at least one main deck answer to that. It doesn't really hurt to have. I've never had this be dead. Like, even if I drew it like early sometimes, the rest of my deck was just 2 for 1ing so much that I burned my opponent's resource anyway, and so it never was like I never had enough resource to play. And then in terms of like a side deck or anything, I don't actually have one built yet. We don't know what the meta is going to be, so I didn't bother putting one together. But for the most part, I would try to get a lot of addition hate, so cards like Safeguard of the Light Palace or Manifestation of Power are really good. Barrier of Shadows would definitely be in my side. I think that card is still absolutely crazy. I might want to go with Zero's Familiar. If anyone noticed, I'm not running it. The reason I don't like it is because, like I said, this particular build wants to play on my opponent's turn, so tapping 2 for Zero's Familiar just doesn't seem worth it when I can like hold a counter or set a Executioner or something for it. I always get scared that people are going to be too comfortable with hiding behind Zero's Familiar to give her the barrier, like instead of the Win Secluded Refuge, for example. But the thing is like Win Secluded Refuge lets you draw a card, and so if I'm drawing a card and then they try to get to 0 and I protect her and then they do kill her anyway, I drew a card, it protected a card, and then they used a 3rd card. So that's 3 cards they had to use to get through Win Secluded and 0, whereas Zero's Familiar, like they could just attack it and then kill my 0, and they didn't lose any cards. They just used the 1 for 1 for my 0. So Win Secluded just seemed like a better play because it at least replaces itself when I use it too, whereas Zero's Familiar is just like a flyer that swings, which is like kind of not that necessary because this deck already pushes for damage so much. So I didn't want to worry about the side. And then just real quick, the only reason I didn't really show Zero's J-Ruler side is because it's pretty much the same as the ruler side in terms of the negation effect, but what she does is if she's on the field, your opponent's cards lose flying, swiftness, precision, and imperishable, and she has precision herself, which is really good, which is target attack from before, but they just changed the name. And then the really cool thing I forgot to mention about this though is the prevent all damage effect. When she battles, she doesn't take any damage, which is really crazy because you can get really ballsy. There was times where I would like swing at a Machina player when he had like a 12-12 Maribel on the field, and I was just like, block it. Like, you know, I might have Zero's magic, and that's terrifying. And if you block it, like, you're risking that. And so they would have to try to block safer, and I would be able to get them to replace monsters or lose monsters for free just because they don't know what I'm going to have. And I think that's really cool. Like, she's just really powerful, and I'm really happy with how this deck came out. So I really hope you guys generally enjoyed the deck profile. Give it a try. Let me know what you guys think, what you like, what you don't like. I'm really confident that the deck will do really good though. I didn't see like having the need for a lot of changes. I would just kind of work on the side. But Interdimensional Escape is also another good mention. I would really want to play Interdimensional Escape in the side because I don't do anything on my turn. So it's like if my opponent floods the field trying to get past all the like stealth cards or whatever, and you just go Interdimensional Escape, it kind of baits them into even more removal. So that would be really cool. But let me know what you guys think. Definitely subscribe. Feasting will be coming Thursday or Friday, so tune in for that one as well. And I'll definitely catch you guys next time.